What are you talking about? What do you mean take all the royalties? Like somehow you're paying it? You're the bank. You're taking a share of what's earned. And in this case, you're like, I'm just going to pocket it myself because naughty artist. Right out the gate, if you've watched either of my TuneCore videos and you want to help just to spread the word about this so that we can actually implement meaningful change, please share out the video. The first one where I'm like in this setup and I go through the whole thing with the evidence and just talk about the whole situation is probably the best one to use, but share it out to your family and friends. And it's just important because the louder that we get, the more change that happens. That's just how this goes. So since releasing that, there was an incredible response from not only my community here on Top Music Attorney YouTube and those that are just trying to work on their music business, work on their music careers. A lot of artists, a lot of producers, just a lot of people who have been frustrated, taken advantage of, and it's not just from music distributors, but we are focusing on music distributors today, and more specifically, TuneCore. I made a point as I've been trying to respond to your guys' comments to save a few because you guys are so smart and you just bring out such great points. So I want to go through a few of them, but as we are going through this, please feel free to drop your comments, thoughts, and questions. So let's start with this first one. The comment is so true. We literally sign up with them, distributors. I highly doubt it that it states in their terms of service that we then have to prove we are real to earn our money. They can't change the rules just because. All right, so just recap. Part of the problem with TuneCore was that TuneCore wouldn't release the royalties to our client, and they're claiming that our artist isn't a real artist. It was so disrespectful how TuneCore was referring to our client, like literally calling him a scumbag, alleging all this fake streaming and not a real musician, essentially like insulting the actual music. Have you even heard the music? Like those kinds of questions being asked. Setting aside professionalism issues there, this comment just goes to the terms of service for TuneCore, right? For them to accept your music and distribute it to music platforms. Well, they don't say you have to prove you're a real artist. Well, what they're saying right now for TuneCore is you need to prove you're a real artist in order to get paid. And that's where, after several months of working on this, right? So we went through the whole gambit of your terms of service, say that you get to keep all the royalties, not just for yourself, but you can even give it to a third party. You can give it to someone else. If there has been even a claim related to, and we went through the terms of service, right? So big block of text, there's been alleged fraudulent streaming, fake plays, right? A claim for copyright infringement, a claim about trademark issues. And so they just go through it. So they're like, basically, even if there's just a claim, not that someone has proven anything, but even if there's a claim, we can just kick you off the platform and take the royalties. And obviously, I take significant issue with that because the whole, as a music distributor, you can kick people off of your platform. You are a private company. I get it. And you can say this in your terms. If we don't want you on our platform for any reason, we can just kick you off. And I don't even necessarily have a problem with that. Obviously, it can be abused, but like, it is what it is. What I have a problem with is any company, in this case TuneCore, putting in their terms of service that everyone has to sign. This is not negotiable. When you're uploading your music and it goes, click this button to say you agree to our terms of service. You don't get to negotiate that. So you just signed a contract and you agree to it. And so they go, well, in our terms of service, it says, if there's a claim of X, Y, and Z, that we get to take your royalties. And so in the case of our client, who's a big fraudster, we suspect there's been streaming fraud. And so for the tens of thousands of dollars that he earned, it was improperly earned, so we're going to keep it. And so what I explained in my first video was that, you know, that's what's called an impermissible penalty provision. And it's different for every state. But we went through all the steps, right? Because the terms of service for TuneCore are subject to New York law. And we found applicable case law, basically reiterating the whole, if you have something that's just a big penalty, if you break our contract, you owe us $1 million. You can't put that in a contract. It has to be fairly situated, comparable to damages actually suffered. So when I was talking to TuneCore's counsel, and I just, explain that, which I shouldn't have to. And I go, what are your damages? If you're saying you're going to keep tens of thousands of dollars, what harm has TuneCore suffered? This was several years ago. And, I explained that he eventually, several months into this, all of a sudden he's like, well, Spotify is now instituting sanctions and we're going to get sanctioned and all this stuff. Obviously, we know that Spotify, in fact, is going to be sanctioning labels and distributors and artists if fake streams are found. Okay, so they're trying to monitor and control this. I get that. But I just go, you're saying something that's just not true, because right now we're dealing with something that happened several years ago. None of this was in play. And above and beyond any of that, you haven't actually been sanctioned. So I go, right now you're just saying you're going to keep it. And what was amazing was just when you push someone enough and you just try to have like a reasonable conversation about the law and evidence and stuff like that, it just eventually came out. TuneCore's just like, no, we're not going to give it to the artist because we think it's unethical. And they said, we're here fighting the good fight for real artists who are, trying to make money, and we're trying to help them. And then we have these big fraudsters like your client who comes and going to take all these royalties. What are you talking about? What do you mean take all the royalties? Like somehow you're paying it? You're the bank. You're taking a share of what's earned. And in this case, you're like, I'm just going to pocket it myself because naughty artist. A Music Attorney is your #1 legal resource for artists, producers, and record labels. Get contract templates, one-on-one legal advice, free master classes, and everything you need for your music business. Go to topmusicattorney.com. TuneCore and DistroKid appeal to the basic human nature. You keep 109% of your royalties. We take nothing. I've never fallen for that pitch. I've been with CD Baby since 2005. I mean, look, again, the glorified banks that are music distributors either charge you a fee up front to distribute your music and take a percentage of your earnings, or they will just take a share of your earnings. And we all just agree to that. I mean, like, if we could just take a second and take a step back and just be like, that's kind of crappy that is how the music business works and that you have to go through these gatekeepers. Now, if I'm going to be the devil's advocate for 2 seconds and say, well, if you're the DSPs, you want to make sure that the quality of everything that you get is what it needs to be, because music distributors are gonna be like, you're too dumb as artists, right? You're too dumb to figure out the right levels for your music and the quality of it, what kind of file it needs to be, what's the volume, like all this stuff. And so they go, we need the music distributors who can tell you and help you through it and make sure it's all right before they deliver it to us, because we're ingesting, and what is it, like 1 million or 2 million tracks a month? It's a lot. So in just how the whole relationship works, from you to the music distributor to the DSP, that's what they're going to argue and say. And it sucks because it's not worth our time and effort just to be all upset because music distributors and, these music platforms are taking a share of our earnings. It's okay to have a feeling about that, but really what I'm trying to do is be like, that's not the whole conversation here. The whole conversation is going to be on what are you doing to actually monetize what you're doing? Are you working to get your music into TV and film and games? Are you doing something to actually do something with the creative stuff that you make, or the services that you can provide? If you're a talented music producer, you're a talented songwriter, you make great beats, why aren't you selling those? Joey says, I'm not a big union person, but I think indie artists should consider starting a small union that everyone pays into so they can have a stronger position in these types of incidents. Maybe something like AFM. If 5,000 musicians pay $10, 20 or $10 or $20 fee per month to retain the lawyers at the unions. And like, I'm so on board. And I appreciate you sharing this, Joe. But the union has to have some real teeth behind it. That's the difference. Like, and I go, the fact that I have not heard of the American Federation of Musicians until actually doing research on this makes me sad. There needs to be one specifically for artists. That encompasses artists and music producers and everyone's who's not just like what they define as their musicians of like playing in orchestras and, that kind of thing. There needs to be a separate organization, but it needs to be an organization that people are scared of. Like when this organization comes knocking and says, hey, TuneCore, your terms of service are unlawful, knowing that there's actually financial backing, that they're going to do something about it. So if you guys are down to unionize, drop a comment. I don't know. Maybe we're going to have to start a petition here. Someone, Daily Espresso, says, DistroKid closed 2 of my accounts and took $200. It's funny how it's not their royalties. I saw some of your guys' comments that also made me laugh, where you were like, especially when TuneCore's all, he's not a real artist. They're like, he was enough of a real artist to not only distribute his music, but he's enough of a real artist to then make the royalties that they will take. They still took the money, right? Why don't artists just boycott TuneCore? They need us. There are other distributors who would gladly take in other artists. You're right. But again, I feel like everything has to be done tactfully and as like a synchronized kind of move. You know what I'm saying? If in the grand scheme of things, we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of artists and then like 200 do something, okay. You know what I mean? So I like this idea of how do we come together to actually have change happen. I'm not a fan of government poking around in private enterprise, but it's at the point all these tech companies get some sort of legislation that holds them accountable. The government does eventually kind of get involved when certain things are happening, right? When companies are defrauding the general public, when they're monopolizing the market and not allowing other companies to kind of come up. So they do get involved. I'm not saying that it's, the government doesn't need to get involved in this, but that the stuff has to be addressed. I imagine that if we took time and we reviewed the terms of service, the majority of music distributors likely follow these practices. They probably don't even they're not sitting there scheming with their lawyer and being like, aha, we're going to take all this money and all that. It's probably more of like, well, what are we going to do with the money? Oh, I guess we just keep it. Why would we pay it out to the artists? And not being artist-centric to protect artists. It pisses me off that pretty much no one is working to actually protect artists, which are the ones that make the music business possible. Songwriters and artists are the reason the entire music business is possible. And yet they're all the way down here, the bottom of the totem pole, being taken advantage of. And that pisses me off. And that's why I do what I do on this channel. TuneCore is exactly what they called your artist, scum. I've had plenty of legal issues with them in the past. They need to go out of business, and some of the people involved in their theft need to go to prison. Music is in desperate need of decentralized power. There's far more gatekeepers between the artists uploading the files to a cloud and someone streaming it off their phone or computer. We need to decentralize power and cut out the middleman. Just by comparison, one thing that I'll mention, you think about Kanye. Kanye is actively trying to do just this. He came out with his own player for a minute. He's been very vocal about just being really angry about the state of the music business, and he's not wrong. Now, you could compare someone like a Kanye or a Taylor Swift or these people who have achieved insane success and money and all this stuff, and they are still obviously really upset because other people own their masters. But this is about just making sure that artists get paid for all the things that you do, and all of the, scummy people, legitimately scummy people who are going to try to take advantage of, try to sell you a dream, try to just sell you something that isn't real, or to be like, I'm going to distribute your music and it's because you have to do it. You have to pay through, a share of your earnings, and you just literally don't even have a choice in it. At the bare minimum, can we please just give artists and producers a chance that you can get in and you can do this yourself and you're not just going to be exploited and taken advantage of. There are too many gatekeepers, I agree. The reason for them withholding, I love this, his funds, my client, sounds extremely personal. I gotta be honest. I kind of agree with this. And I just go at some point when it's not even about the law anymore, we can't even have a conversation about the law, the application of the contract that you're alleging was signed, applies here. And you're telling me that the basis of you not releasing the money is that my client is a scumbag and it would be unethical to allow the release of the funds to him. And they even had, TuneCore actually even said, we will release the funds to any charity of your client's choosing. Just let us know what charity. So I'm so you'll release the funds, just not to him. So really this is a personal thing? You just don't like my client? Just don't use TuneCore. Whoever is ripping artists off, create a website, upload your music, sell it on there. I'm down. Look, we have artists who are still somehow able to do this. If you have a big enough following, people who just love you and they'll buy vinyls and they'll buy CDs and you know what I'm saying? Sell it off your website, please do. But I'm just saying for the far majority of everyone else, just trying to break through and trying to do something, you want to be on these music platforms. You want to be everywhere. You want to be doing the thing. So to even just get on these platforms, which then we're like, oh my gosh, my streams were only 1,000 this month. I'm such a loser. And then you feel terrible about yourself. To even go and get on those platforms, you still had to go through the music distributor. You're still giving a portion of your royalties. If you're a hustler like me, working on your career every day, go to topmusicattorney.com to apply to work directly with me. Let's get your music business to 6 figures and beyond. Lee White says, easy way to take out an artist you don't like, run some bots to do a bunch of synthetic plays. Man, that's dark. That's really dark. The other issue here, and I talked about this in the original video, I'm just there's problems where someone will genuinely get a bunch of traffic because they pay for Facebook ads or they have a song that goes viral on TikTok or just something. And so there's a huge spike in traffic. And just from that alone will be the thing that triggers this whole the DSP, Spotify's it seems like fake plays. If there's no required step that the distributor has to go through to prove that what was claimed in fact was true. In fact, yesterday, one of my clients, they have over 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. And someone had filed a claim for alleged copyright infringement. And really, the claimant is just an idiot. And they don't understand the status of how you do cover songs. And it's okay to do cover songs. And there's mechanical licenses and how it all works. Now, DSPs are the ones that cover the mechanical licenses, and actual song writers and artists and producers can make cover songs and put them on music platforms. And you don't have to go and get any kind of license. And so they file the claim and the music gets taken down. And so now we're fighting with the distributor, not TuneCore, it's a different distributor, to explain this. I'm like, you should know this, but then I don't know who the hell I'm talking to. They're like, legal department at blah, 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 distribution company. And so that's the tricky part here. So I'm always just going through the steps to try to explain, to help them understand, but then also trying to explain this to the claimant and being like, you misunderstand. You think that this is sampling. Cover songs is not sampling. It's a whole different process. If you're going to sample something, you do need to get a license. If you're doing a cover song, you don't. And so, just go through all this because of just people's misunderstandings. A friend of mine tried to release one of his original singles through TuneCore, and they didn't release it, saying there was kind of copyright infringement. That's when I knew these guys are just playing dumb and dangerous. I knew for a fact the track was completely original. There was no samples. So we went over to DistroKid, got it released through DistroKid. Yeah, I heard today there was someone who was having a problem because, same kind of thing, there was a claim about like some title was wrong or, inappropriate for a certain platform. In fact, I think it was actually TuneCore. So there are little things that happen that are just super frustrating. And we're like, now we need to go through the process and let them know. And, it's just a pain in the ass. But, it's part of it. You're using someone else's platform. Again, I come back to the reason I am doing all of this is because we're talking about artists' actual money. For the record, there's so many scam companies out there. I wouldn't even blame the artist, even if their streams were mostly bots. So many companies claim to have real playlist placements. I wanted to just mention this because when you go and hire marketing companies, man, they might not even mean to do this, but they're going to do this. If a marketing company is like, we're going to guarantee you're going to get so many streams, they might just go and pay for fake plays. So this may happen to you, and it really was fake plays. But I just go back to, why does that allow a music distributor to then take your money? They can be pissed. They can knock you off their platform. They can do whatever. They don't get to take your royalties. Last couple ones. Music distributors should have zero opinion about who's an artist. They perform a technical service. We are a business customer, and insulting the customer is bad for business. That's right. Don't call your customers scumbags. Another one. Wow. Thank you for producing this information. This made me smile. He goes, in quote, in the music industry world filled with sharks and piranhas, as an artist, you need Krystle, clear legal support. No, I think we need to unionize. I think that's the conclusion we're coming to here. Another one, it sounds like a time for an artist union. Would love to pick your brain about this. No, I think we're all kind of on the same page here. So this is from Nick Bam, and he made such a great point. He goes, I was an auditor for artists who couldn't find their money for over 17 years. I love this. All right, when you guys have like this insight that you can share, it's great. And if they, music distributors, if they keep the money earned, even if your song has been played, streamed by bots, so the music distributors also committed fraud. They collected funds from aggregators who made money from advertisers who paid for legitimate reach and frequency. TuneCore admits that they still accepted the money from the aggregators on the artist's behalf, even though they still need to provide their advertisers with legitimate reach and frequency. Not only were they aware of this, but they still distributed the money throughout their organization. Love this point. So he's like, well, if it really is big fraudsters collected all this money, well, as the music distributor, you not only would and should give the money back to DSPs, which are the digital service providers, give it back to Spotify, but then Spotify needs to give it back to the advertisers, right? And so again, in the whole, obviously we're here fighting for our client, the artist, and making sure and just trying to get him paid. But even in the instance of if what TuneCore is arguing is true, why do they get to keep the money? Really good point. Kind of where we're at right now. And you might be asking, well, what are we going to do? And that was a common question that came up on, do we just leave this? And a part of what I want your guys' input on is, there's no union for specifically artists. And it's funny because, I've been in the music business since I was 4, and I've been a music attorney for over 9 years and just been doing this a long time. And I didn't know the answer to this question. I had to actually do research. There is one here that serves the United States and Canada. It's the American Federation of Musicians. And I go, oh, okay, never heard of this. And I went to their website and they're saying, we do contract negotiation, we do legal assistance, we do advocacy. I'm like, that's all super great, but it's for musicians, meaning like if you play in an orchestra, background around music, you're hired for movie kinds of things. And I go, so there's nothing for artists. Why is that? Because I go, really at this point, the options with TuneCore are twofold. One, we can sue them, because my job when I get involved is to send letters and screech at the top of my lungs and make lots of threats. And if we don't get what we want, then the next step is we file a lawsuit. But the issue for an artist is that there's a huge expense tied towards that. And in this case, it would have to be in New York. So now we have to go find a New York licensed attorney. I'm not licensed in New York. And that's all possible, but it's an uphill battle. It's several years. It's very expensive. And so obviously that is a huge barrier to someone actually moving forward. And I think these big companies know that. I think that they know that. And so that's why they're very comfortable to just say, screw it, screw your artist, he's a scumbag, we're keeping the money, whatever. And there's too many independent artists to just sit by and not be able to really implement and achieve change. Because to your guys' points on the comments that you've left, obviously if all of you were like, we're leaving TuneCore, that would hurt them, right? Would they stop being in business altogether? No, but it's stuff like that that would make a difference. But also it's just general, like, how they look. If this is just a little blip and they'll weather the storm, no big deal. But back to the options. So 2 options. We file a lawsuit, which we may or may not be successful in. And I would want there to be some kind of class certification. So it's not just this artist. Because it's not just this artist. It's tens of thousands of artists. Hundreds of thousands of artists. I don't know how many people have not only signed up with TuneCore, distributed their music, but how long TuneCore has been doing this. So it could be a lot of people. So you get a class certification because maybe there's hundreds of thousands of people, potentially a lot of damages. Not all of you have had a bad experience because not all of you had your music taken off the platform or some kind of allegation of copyright infringement or trademark infringement or fake streams. So maybe you haven't had a direct kind of injury, but maybe you have. One of the comments that you guys made, you go, I feel like this is like a side hustle for music distributors. This is a side hustle for TuneCore. And I gotta be honest, I think you're right. Because think of the amount of money all taken together. It's not just this one client, but typically the clients who hire me, they have a lot of money. That's outstanding. That's being held by these distributors that are in like the tens of thousands. I had one client that was like $100,000. That's, bigger chunks of change, but then taking, tens of thousands of artists of smaller amounts, it's a lot of money. So option number 2, what do? File a lawsuit, try to get a class certification, or 2, unionize. And I go, if we could have a union that artists and music producers and musicians all could be a part of, so that in the same kind of way, it's like, what does union do? Well, you get like certified by the labor department, everyone pays a fee, but the idea is that you get assistance when there's these kinds of like injustices and you have someone who can go and like blow opposing counsel's hair back and go for it because you have like an entire organization that is there specifically to help you. And I feel like this is definitely something that's missing. And I'm just curious, for those of you watching right now, if you paid $5 to be a part of, an artist union, is that something that you would be into? Would you join? Would you support the cause? Because whenever I've kind of discussed the union idea, the only kind of pushback I've ever heard is, well, artists and producers are so just like in their own little worlds. I think everyone would come together. I really do. And I think that especially from, just the response that I've received so far, and it's like a little blip. And I'm saying our videos haven't gotten millions of views and stuff like that. But from the small amount of you that have seen the video, that then engaged on the video and gave me some feedback about your experience and your thoughts, I think that everyone has the same feeling about this. And in the same kind of way, still, who knows? I really believe that this is like a PR thing. The more that we can get these companies to hear that we're all on the same page, and this kind of thing isn't going to be tolerated anymore because artists don't have an option to not go through a music distributor. You have to get your music on platforms. And, for those of you who are like, F the music distributors, I'm just going to release my music on my website. I love that. But I also need you to play the game. I need you to have your music everywhere so your fans can just not have to work so hard. So what I'm saying is that using the system as is and being like the fastest way to fix this is just to force the middleman to not be exploitative and to not do things that are likely legally unenforceable if really challenged, if we do really file the lawsuit. All right, another comment. Thank you for doing this. I never trusted TuneCore. I actually have a copyright claim on my own song right now on Facebook because of TuneCore. I already asked them. The copyright claim wasn't released. This is so annoying. I had this happen with Symphonic, and it's actually the reason why I left them. I had a relatively fine experience, and one of my albums came out during COVID, and I was like, this sucks. And I'd been promising my audience that this album was coming and all this stuff. And I remember just, a whole thing like leading up to it. I go, all right, so I have to do everything virtually, virtual performance, virtual release party. Totally sucks, but I'm going to do it. So the biggest thing with the distributor was we needed to have the music whitelisted on our channels, on our social media, so our live stream didn't get shut down. And guess what happened? I mean, that shit got shut down so fast. Like everything. And then, at the end of the day, who cares about little old me? I'm just another artist and, whatever. But like, it was really upsetting. I don't want to say devastating, but like, it was really upsetting. And when I went to deal with it, they ended up like somehow blaming me. And it was just such horrible customer service. And it was ascended up to the big person who oversees all the things. And they still said something to that effect of like, they had done everything right. I'm like, you know what? Like customer service really matters. But that's one thing. It's okay. If I'm like, I'm not happy with this company because I don't like the way I was treated, cool, I'm going to go somewhere else. It's a totally different situation when it's this company has my money and they've just decided they're not going to give it to me. Another comment. I have a very good friend who makes really great music, but he's intimidated by music industry, so he hasn't gone fully pro for almost 20 years. I'm really sad to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm here saying, look at all of these basically like mobsters of the music business who are very exploitative. But I'm also here saying that you can empower yourself and not be a victim to any of this stuff. And if it does happen, we're going to do something about it. And I want you to always remember the whole, like, you can be your own label, think like a label, learn how to monetize, learn how to navigate. These things happen. We're going to see what we can do to fix it on a global level for everyone. But like, don't be scared to, go all in. Go all in. If music is your life, if you love what you do, time's too short. Life's too short. As an attorney, can you please explain so we all understand when theft stopped being a criminal offense? Interesting question. Your bank metaphor is a good one. So my bank metaphor, in one of the videos I go, if I'm like, Wells Fargo, if you violate my terms of service, I can't just, take your money. I think they actually do that too. Anyway, if I'm Wells Fargo, I can't just take your money and give it to someone else. An even better one is, can a store owner rob its customers? So to the original question of like, this isn't a crime. Okay, so in law, you have civil claims, which is if you are personally wronged, damages, you can sue someone or a company. And then crimes are asserted by the actual state, right? So you have like the attorney general after you, but it sometimes can be for the same stuff that was done, right? So if you defrauded people, investors, and you took money and ran away, the investors can sue you, but also the government can come after you. I'm not saying the government's going to come after TuneCore because right now the issue is that, remember, we have a contract. We have a contract that artists are signing, that they're being forced to sign, that says we reserve the right to take all your money. So this would be a civil claim if it was a lawsuit, at least at this juncture. Who knows? Maybe it'll escalate to an actual crime. So guys, in the whole like of things that are coming up, because we're not just going to be talking about TuneCore forever. However, there is going to be something that happens from here. And I had said as far as like essentially lawsuit or union. I don't know which way we're going to take this, but I'm really, really excited for your feedback. So please continue to drop that. And it's going to help me to figure out what I want to do because I'm just here to help. In the meantime, it's all the things that we're going to do in the meantime for your music to help you monetize, to make money. And one of the things that I have coming up is specifically in regards to sync licensing. So if you guys are interested in learning about sync licensing, how to get your music into TV and film and games, I have a basically like boot camp, and I've put together like all the information, who to contact, emails, like all the things for you. So just get on the email list. And that way you can be notified when that comes out, which is as early as next week. So make sure you get on that.